USC at Nebraska. This is what I'm going to deem the keep hope alive game, because the loser of this game, their hope for the rest of the season is going to be dashed, because both of these teams came into the season with college football playoff hopes. Fans thought it was possible. Inside the locker room, you know they believed it was possible, regardless of what people in the outside said. But you had people picking USC to make the college football playoff, people picking Nebraska to make it, and now they both sit with 2 losses. USC, who has lost to Notre Dame and to Illinois. Both of those are good football teams, so you can't complain about those losses. And then you have Nebraska, who has lost to Michigan, who USC beat by 3 scores, and they lost to Minnesota. So this is going to be interesting because this game is in Lincoln. Ironically enough, for 2 blue blood programs, you would have thought that they would have played at some point in time, or played a lot, right? Well, Nebraska has never beaten USC. USC won this game last year, 28-20, and that was Jaden Maiava's first start for the Trojans. There's a lot at stake for this game, because the loser, oh, you know that locker room is, oh, man, the season's over. We can't make it to the college football playoff. And then you are going to drop more games. So then you're going to be at danger of being a 4 to 5 loss team at that point in time, which Lincoln Riley cannot have at USC if he wants to keep hope alive for the recruiting class, for the future, for the donors continuing to funnel money in, because they're like, yo, what return are we getting on this? And the same thing is true for Matt Rhule over there at Nebraska. Forts are, you know, he might be backdooring the deal to Penn State. You keep losing your games, you ain't going to be an exciting hire in the press conference. This matters to so much. Now let's talk about these coach versus coach. We got Lincoln Riley versus the aforementioned Matt Rhule. And this game is a tale of 2 coaches attempting to get their school back to their former glory. Matt Rhule, like we talked about with the Penn State job, he's trying to fend off the rumors despite not coming out and saying, I'm not leaving. Because either he's trying to negotiate with the school for a new contract, or for more resources or something, or he really wants that Penn State job. Lincoln Riley has actually seen some rust develop on his very shiny name, because he was, the toast of the town when he was at Oklahoma getting poached to USC. But, oh my gosh, this is an amazing hire. It hasn't worked out yet. And it is actually one of the primary reasons why I have cautioned LSU, Florida, Penn State, UCLA, Oklahoma State, all of these big-time programs that have openings right now, away from poaching Power 4 head coaches as a means for you to try to come up, because it hasn't worked. Find me an example, aside from Nick Saban going from Michigan State to LSU, where you have had success where a Power 4 coach got poached to another school. If you can find examples, drop them in the comments, because it's a decent question. You got Matt Rhule on the other hand. He's 6-2. Then the 1-score win over Cincinnati, that actually looks very good at this point in time, because Cincinnati is rolling, and they beat Maryland and Northwestern as well. But those Michigan and Minnesota losses, if they finish 10-2, they won't look that bad at the end of the season. Like, it's not like you lost to Northwest Missouri State and it's going to look bad, or you lost to a last place team in the Big Ten, like, some of the SEC teams did last year in Ole Miss and Alabama, who got left out of the college football playoff. Matt Rhule did have to replace a lot on defense from last season, and he has already criticized his defensive coordinator, John Butler's game plan against Minnesota as what he said was too vanilla. But truth is, Butler agreed. And knowing that Rhule's offensive coordinator from last year took a demotion and stayed on staff actually makes me feel like they have a culture of honesty going on in Lincoln, which it takes to be able to win. And they're not going to let pride get in the way of trying to find a way to win football games, which is exactly what you need in a winning program. Now, for Nebraska, being bowl eligible 2 years in a row, it actually is a big deal, even though they are a blue blood program, especially after they went 7 years without an even bowl berth. But the college football playoff, it is still a realistic possibility. And Nebraska fans, they want more. They deserve it. They show up. They sell out regardless of what the product is on the field. And they're like, yo, this has to be our time. But there are plenty of distractions going on right now because you got Matt Rhule linked to all sorts of jobs, in namely the Penn State job, because he was a walk-on 4-year linebacker under Joe Paterno out there. And he actually made Temple relevant in his first coaching head stop. So he looks like he fits in Pennsylvania. And then plus you got Rhule, who launched a podcast that was supposed to be an inside look at the day-to-day of being Nebraska's head coach. But he has Pennsylvania-based co-hosts, and the episodes have had more national focus than anything so far because they've had guests like Dave Portnoy and the CEO of Motorola. Does that sound like Nebraska football? But Nebraska fans might actually defend him having a show. But you can bet it'll be the first thing that comes up if things start to fall apart or if he takes a job elsewhere. And then on Lincoln Riley's side, he's actually too busy restricting media access to be out here having his own show. But in the wake of the loss to Notre Dame, his comments have actually been very interesting. He put the blame on his defensive players, more specifically the defensive linemen, for not stunting into the correct gaps. So this could got some Brian Kelly action to it. Or he's trying hard to make up for the mistakes by freestyling on his play calling. And it makes you wonder if he's actually frustrated with his defensive coordinator, who was, the toast of the town, DeAnton Lynn. And then after the Trojans, because they gave up a combined 477 rushing yards across those two games that they lost. There have been two different Lincoln Rileys. You got USC Lincoln Riley, which is 4-13 against top 25 opponents. And then you got Oklahoma Lincoln Riley, that was 15-6 against AP top 25 opponents. And right now, the Trojans are not getting what they paid for when they brought Lincoln Riley over from Norman, Oklahoma. And when schools like Penn State and LSU, when they move on from their coaches for not meeting expectations, it makes USC look a little bit unserious when they're looking at his buyout number at, 60-some million plus. And they're like, that's too rich for our blood right now. But this next 2 years for Lincoln Riley, it is the absolute last shot for him. Because in terms of being able to sell hope, new general manager, they got a top recruiting class. People are still like, okay, no matter what happens this season, next year's our year. But their schedule looks crazy for next year. And Lincoln Riley has also accurately pointed out that USC has every opportunity to still do something special this season, but they have to beat Nebraska to even make sure that that game in Eugene matters, the game against UCLA matters, and the rest of the season as well. Now, let's look at the quarterback versus quarterbacks, because you got Jaden Maiava, who people want Dylan Raiola to be. Even though that they actually have similar touchdown stats, Mya'ba has been sacked 20 less times because he actually gets rid of the football. Mya'ba is leading the Big Ten in yards per attempt because he gets rid of the football. Mya'ba is averaging 80 more rushing yards per game because he gets rid of the football. And Mya'ba has 300 net rushing yards more than Raiola because he's not hanging on to the football every single play until the bitter end. And Raiola does all of this for a completion percentage that is 5% higher than Mya'ba's. And I get that taking sacks doesn't hurt as bad when you're the size of a tight end, but it hurts your team, all of those yards that you lose. And this is the thing that people have criticized Shedeur Sanders for when he was in college. Other quarterbacks trying to protect their completion percentage, just throw the ball away and save them extra yards. It actually puts your offense in such a worse spot. But with all that said, we're not going to sit here and act like Rhule is not a very good player. The dude has a big arm. He's been very durable, but he'll never justify that 5-star ranking unless he lets it rip and stops the dink and dunk and the conservative play, because that's not how Nebraska is going to, take things to the next level. Now, on the other end, Jaden Maiava, he's actually proven a lot of doubters wrong, and he's looking like a legitimate NFL prospect, not necessarily in this draft, but the next draft. But there is only one thing that Maiava has not done, and that is look his best against a legitimate secondary. And that's exactly what Nebraska brings to the table, because only one team has thrown for over 160 yards against the Cornhuskers this year, and that is Maryland. Now, let's look at USC's offense versus Nebraska's defense. USC is depending on freshman King Miller at running back after the injury bug has literally infected their whole running back room. And he's looked good in his first 2 starts. And even at times last week against a stout Notre Dame front, you can actually see vision with this kid and that there's something there. Now, it does feel like USC has shown much more of a dedication to the run game than Lincoln Riley ever has in his coaching career. But make no mistake, this team is still built upon the weapons outside, and those are Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, because those guys have NFL scouts absolutely drooling, especially Makai Lemon, who's going to be a first-round pick in this next draft. But they actually need to find a way to keep tight end Lake McRee involved, because as the season has gone on, so has his production. It has not. For Nebraska, you got Jade Wright. Oh, the kid is a star. He's having a breakout season this year, and he's actually the first Nebraska defender to have at least 10 tackles in 4 straight games in over 20 years. And he had what turned out to be the game-winning interception last week against Northwestern. Now, USC, they actually might want to try to establish the run after back-to-back teams averaged over 5 yards per carry versus Nebraska. But this is a Trojans team averaging over 300 yards through the air. Can Lincoln Riley resist the urge to win his way? Now, let's look at this Nebraska offense versus the USC defense. Now, ignore Nebraska's season rushing stats as a team, because a lot of the stats are actually skewed by Dylan Raiola having negative 86 rushing yards. And then you got Emmett Johnson. The kid has been an absolute workhorse for this team, and he's averaging 5.7 yards per carry and getting a Lawrence Phillips level of touches. Now, I'm not saying he's Lawrence Phillips, but we're just understanding the perspective. Now, Johnson has had 4 multi-touchdown games, and Nebraska's only 2 losses came when Johnson was kept out of the end zone. So, Nebraska, their offensive coordinator, Dana Holgorsen, it means that this how mommy air raid offense has to find a way to keep getting him the football. I'm actually very interested to see this matchup between USC's defensive coordinator, D'Anton Lynn, and this offense, because if he has ever sat around in practice thinking about what he would do if he had to stop Lincoln Riley's offense, well, now is the chance to pull out his bag of tricks, because this is the same damn thing. And you got safety Bishop Fitzgerald. The kid has 5 interceptions, and some of those have actually come off the pressure that USC's pass rush creates and that they have given him so far. Or 6'6" USC linebacker Eric Gentry, if he is going to make some big plays. Because Gentry is a very good player, but he's coming off of one of the worst performances of his career against Notre Dame. And he has actually been overly confident in the media and saying that that won't happen again. So we'll see if he can back it up. Now, the X factor in this game, both teams need to run the football. Both teams need to create pressure on the opposing quarterback. But this game really comes down to the quarterbacks, because a trip to the college football playoff could be on the line. NFL draft stock and reputations could be on the line. NIL dollars could be on the line. Can Jaden Maiava at USC be the first quarterback to solve this Nebraska pass defense? Because they are stout. Or can Dylan Raiola stay upright and not put his team in negative situations trying to keep his passing stats up? Will he run to avoid and evade the pressure? My prediction in this game, USC, they are favored by 6.5 points. I am going to take the Nebraska Cornhuskers until I see that USC can throw the football at a very high level, because Nebraska stops you from doing the one thing that USC has to do to win this football game. This is good against good, and one of them has to win. So I'm going to take Nebraska plus 6.5. Now, USC could turn out to win this football game, but I got 6.5 points, so I feel real good. I'm George Wrighster. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, tell a friend about the show, and most importantly, share and be one of us.